The sun hung high over the green hills of the Cotswolds, casting a golden glow over the neatly trimmed hedges and sleepy stone cottages that dotted the landscape. It was one of those rare English Sundays in late spring when the sky stayed clear, the air warm but not humid, and the birds sang as if they too were celebrating the weekend. Eliza Carter had planned this picnic for days, not just as a family outing, but as a quiet reunion with her younger sister, Clara, who had recently returned from teaching abroad in Edinburgh. Everything had been prepared with care: crisp linen napkins folded into triangles, cucumber sandwiches cut into perfect quarters, homemade scones still warm from the oven, and even a small bottle of chilled rosé tucked into the cooler alongside lemonade for her daughter. That daughter, Emily, was now 20, bright-eyed and full of restless energy, dressed exactly as her mother had requested: a knee-length dark blue cotton frock with short puffed sleeves, a modest square neckline, and a white Peter Pan collar that gave her a sweet, almost vintage charm. It was a simple dress, chosen for comfort and neatness, but on Emily it somehow looked both innocent and mischievous. They had spread their tartan picnic blanket beneath a sturdy oak tree, its branches offering just enough shade to keep them cool without stealing the warmth of the sun. Aunt Clara was unpacking a container of shortbread when Emily noticed the Bluetooth speaker sitting on the cooler. Without asking, she tapped her phone and played an upbeat pop song, one with a catchy rhythm she couldn't resist. "Oh, Eliza sighed gently, "not now, love. We're about to eat." But Emily was already swaying, her bare feet brushing the grass as she twirled in place, arms outstretched, her dark blue frock flaring slightly with each spin. She laughed a light, tinkling sound and called out, "Just one dance, Mum. It's too nice a day not to." Clara chuckled. "Let her be, Eliza. It's sweet." But Eliza watched with growing unease. The cooler stood just behind Emily, tall, heavy, and full to the brim. She opened her mouth to warn her, but it was too late. Mid-twirl, Emily's heel caught on a small root. She stumbled backward with a surprised yelp and crashed right into the cooler. It tipped with a sickening thud. The lid flew open. Ice cubes scattered like shattered glass. Juice bottles burst open. Sandwiches tumbled into puddles. The carefully arranged fruit salad sloshed onto the grass, mixing with melting ice and droplets of lemonade. Even the scones, wrapped in parchment, were now half-soaked. Silence fell. Emily straightened slowly, her cheeks flushed pink, her dark blue dress smudged with grass stains at the hem. She looked around, wide-eyed. "Oh, oops." Eliza didn't move for a long moment. She stared at the wreckage, the lunch she'd woken at 5 a.m. to prepare, the little jar of clotted cream she'd driven all the way to the farm shop for, the delicate jam tarts Clara had brought as a gift, all ruined. This wasn't just a spill. It was carelessness. Again. Emily gave a nervous laugh. "It's fine. We can get more food, there's that cafe in Burford, right? Or I'll make sandwiches when we get home." But Eliza finally stood. Her expression wasn't angry in the shouting sense, it was worse. It was disappointed. And in their household, that was far more frightening. "Emily Rose Carter," she said, her voice low and steady, "this isn't about food. It's about respect." Emily's smile faded. You knew I spent all morning packing this. You saw how much care went into it. And yet you chose to dance, show off, really right next to the one thing that could ruin everything. This isn't the first time, either. Last week, you left the back door open during that downpour. Before that, you knocked over Grandma's urn vase while dancing in the hallway. You don't think, Emily. You just act. Emily opened her mouth to protest, but Eliza raised a hand. No more words. You will lie down right here, on this blanket, beside the mess you made. Now. Emily blinked. Mum, you can't be serious. I am entirely serious, Eliza said, her tone leaving no room for debate. You will accept the consequence for your thoughtlessness. Lie down. On your stomach. Aunt Clara shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. She knew Eliza's ways, firm, traditional, but never cruel. Emily's lower lip trembled. She glanced at the ruined picnic, then at her mother's unwavering gaze. Slowly, reluctantly, she lowered herself onto the blanket, lying face down in her dark blue cotton frock, her arms crossed beneath her chin. The grass tickled her bare legs. The sun felt suddenly too bright. Eliza knelt beside her. This isn't about shame, she said softly, though her voice carried steel. It's about learning. About understanding that actions have weight. Eliza placed a gentle but firm hand on Emily's lower back to keep her still. Then, with deliberate care, she lifted the hem of the dark blue cotton frock just enough to expose the seat of Emily's white cotton briefs, modest, practical, and now the focus of what was to come. Emily tensed, her breath catching. The first spank landed with a soft thwack. Not brutal, but unquestionably firm. Emily gasped. Oh, Mum. Sure, Eliza said. Stay still. The second swat came quickly, then the third, a steady rhythm forming. Each one landed squarely, the sting blooming warm and sharp. Emily squirmed, her fingers gripping the blanket, her face pressed into the fabric. By the sixth or seventh, tears welled in her eyes. Not just from the physical sensation, but from the humiliation of being corrected like this, in the open air, with her aunt nearby. But there was no escape. Her mother's hand was calm, consistent, and unyielding. Why you're hurting me, Emily whimpered. I'm teaching you, Eliza corrected gently but firmly. You chose this moment, Emily. Not me. The spanking continued 8, 9, 10 until Emily's body went limp beneath her, her sobs quiet and genuine. Only then did Eliza stop. She smoothed the frock back down over her daughter's backside and placed a soothing hand between her shoulder blades. There, she murmured. All over. Emily sniffled, her voice muffled by the blanket. I'm sorry. Not yet, Eliza said. Not until you mean it. After a moment, Eliza helped Emily sit up. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes red-rimmed, her dark blue frock slightly rumpled but still decent. She looked at the mess again, the soggy sandwiches, the spilled clotted cream soaking into the grass, and for the first time, truly saw it. She turned to her mother, her voice trembling but clear. Mum, I'm really, really sorry. I wasn't thinking, not about your hard work, not about Aunt Clara, not about anything except how I felt in that second. It wasn't just an accident. It was me being selfish and silly. I ruined something special, and I don't deserve your kindness after that." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "I'll clean it all up. Every bit. And I'll make dinner tonight, proper dinner, not just toast. And I'll never, ever dance near anything important again. I promise." Eliza studied her face, the sincerity in her eyes, the lack of excuse-making, and finally nodded. "That," she said softly, "is what I needed to hear." As Emily helped gather the ruined food into bin bags, Clara had quietly produced 2 from her tote. She felt a deep ache, not in her backside, which was already fading to a dull warmth, but in her chest. She remembered how her mother had woken before dawn, humming as she buttered bread and arranged strawberries in a glass bowl. She'd even tied a ribbon around the cooler handle, a small, loving touch Emily had barely noticed. Now, kneeling on damp grass, picking up soggy napkins, she understood, love wasn't just in the grand gestures. It was in the quiet, daily acts of care that went unnoticed until they were gone. The spanking had stung, yes, but the real pain came from knowing she'd taken her mother's effort for granted. She hadn't danced to be mean, but that didn't matter. Impact outweighed intent. "I'll never do this again," she whispered to herself. More a vow than a thought. Even Aunt Clara, packing up the dry items, gave her a small, kind smile. "We all learn the hard way sometimes, love." Emily nodded, her throat tight. "I just wish I'd learned it sooner." They didn't stay in the park. Clara, ever thoughtful, suggested they go to the Willow and Whistle, a cozy cafe in the village with scones nearly as good as yours, Eliza. Over steaming pots of Earl Grey and slices of Victoria sponge, the mood softened. Emily sat close to her mother, occasionally resting her head on her shoulder like she used to as a child. Back home that evening, Emily kept her promise. She made shepherd's pie from scratch, something she'd never attempted before, using her mother's recipe card, carefully measuring each ingredient. She even set the table with their best china. As they ate, Eliza reached across and squeezed her hand. "You did well today, after." Emily looked down, then up, her eyes soft. "Only because you made me see." Later, as twilight settled over the English countryside, Emily stood at her bedroom window in her still slightly grass-stained dark blue cotton frock, watching the last light fade behind the hills. She felt different, not just older, but awake. Aware of how easily joy could turn to regret, and how love sometimes wore the shape of discipline. And as she turned off the lamp that night, she made a quiet promise to herself. Next time, she'd dance, but only after everything precious was safely out of the way.